The Union extended their home unbeaten streak against the New York Red Bulls on Saturday night, just not in the way they expected to. We'll break down the 0-0 draw between the Union and their I-95 rivals and how they can build on this result ahead of their match in Toronto this weekend. All that and more as Union Insider starts right now.
Takes the strike on, and it's off the inside of the post. Ariel, who scores off the header from the set piece.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to another edition of Union Insider presented by Independence Blue Cross. I'm Marisa, and I'm joined today by the dynamic duo of Sebastian Letou and Dave Leno. Well, it's always a fun environment when the New York Red Bulls come to town, and that was even more true for the Union in recent years. But coming into Saturday's match, the club was riding an 8-match unbeaten streak against the rivals. But that was in the past. Recently, the Union had been on the side that's been struggling a little bit, coming off a 5-match losing streak, while the Red Bulls sat in 5th place in the Eastern Conference. But enough of the storylines. Let's get into Saturday's match highlights. Despite the goalless night for these two sides, there were still plenty of chances to be had. In the 3rd minute, Don Van Zier rushes down the right side of the field, and when Andrew Rick charges at him, he dumps it off to Lewis Morgan, who has a wide open net. But the talented Scottish forward misses the net, and it goes out for a goal kick. 22nd minute now, another chance for Van Zier after a long ball over the top, streaks down the middle, and out comes Rick again, this time getting big, making a huge save to keep this match 0-0. Second half now, the Red Bulls have another chance down the right side of the field. A pass into the box finds Cameron Harper, but Rick comes up big yet again and denies that goal. Best chances of the day for the Union came in the middle of the half. 56th minute, Jack McGlynn finds open space in the middle of the field, sends a ball forward to Daniel Gosdog, who shoots with his left foot, but right at Carlos Coronel, who saves it, and the rebound comes right back out to Ty Baribo, but it's saved yet again by the former Union goalkeeper. Then, 73rd minute, Quinn Sullivan streaking down the right channel ends up being one-on-one with Coronel, and the youngster tries to chip him, has the space to do it, but it goes into the side of the net. Last chance of the game for either side came in stoppage time. Elias Maywell beats Jacob Glesnes on the ball, hits it in the air, takes a shot at net, but the ball isn't hit with great pace and is corralled by Rick. And the rivalry match ends in a 0-0 draw on a hot and humid, disgusting night at Subaru Park. Guys, there was plenty of chances for both sides in this one, but nobody was able to convert. Does this speak more to the Union's defense keeping a clean sheet or the offense not being able to get a goal?
I mean, it was a good reaction for the team after losing 5 straight games. I think we need a reaction, especially at home. We will have hoped to see a win, but the performance, like you say, was a lot of opportunity in both sides. The Red Bull could have scored, the Union as well. So it's not the lack of creating chances, but like Jim Kerr did say in his press conference, it's a good game to build on. Getting a first clean sheet to Andrew Rick, as a goalkeeper for the team. And at the same time, when you were in Chicago winning 3-1 and then giving 3 late goals, they needed to react and have a good performance defensively. It's what they did. Everybody kind of did his part. Andrew Rick as well, making some good save for the team. So if they can build now on not giving up as many goals and keep creating chances, unfortunately against the Red Bulls, Gazdag, Sullivan, the guys who got the biggest opportunity, were not able to score. But it's not like we saw a game boring and not seeing anything happening offensively. We saw some good stuff. It's just that game, we were not able to score.
Right. We never really consider a 0-0 draw the most exciting or desirable result, and there's no such thing as a moral victory. But Dave, how do you make the case that this result was the best thing for them at the time?
Because the Red Bulls were playing really well coming into the game. They were unbeaten for entering the match. If they started the previous week in 3rd, and like you said earlier, started against the Union in 5th place right now. I will say that, with this result, the Union right now are only a pallet 3 points out of a playoff spot. I know they're right now 1 spot from dead last in the East, and that's tough for all of us to swallow. But it was really important, as you and Seba documented, to just get a draw in this game. Obviously, we all wanted to win. I want to tip my hat that Seba just documented to both keepers. Rick makes 5 saves. Coronel made 6. Remember, former Union and Bethlehem Steel keeper. The Union also went to a back 3 or a back 5, whatever you want to call it. And I thought Damian Lowe, coming in fresh off of Jamaica with Copa, played very well in the back next to Elliott and Glesnes. At times, and I commented to Seba about this on the radio, I saw the Red Bulls playing direct, and I think that helped them out. But Rick and the others, I think, were all in sync with one another defensively. So organization-wise, that got better. However, and you documented with the last Sullivan chance just after the 70th minute. After that, and I said this to Seba again on the air, the Union had to weather the storm of the Red Bulls. What I wanted to see at the end of the game, just because you're at home, more opportunities to score. I know that was tough. Again, they brought Olivier Bizo in for insurance, fresh legs out of the back. Now we're not going to have Nate Harriel out there going to the Olympics with the U.S., the same with Jack McGlynn. So others are going to have to step up moving forward. And some big points need to happen, starting with the game against Toronto, then New England, Nashville, all before Leagues Cup. But all in all, very happy that they at least got a point.
Well, Dave, no goals in this one, but Andrew Rick made a few huge saves. We're going to go over one in particular in this week's Key Play of the Week presented by Subaru. Seba is over at the video monitor. What do you have for us, Seba?
Thank you, Marisa. So yes, at the 22nd minute, it was a huge save to start the game for Andrew Rick, who didn't start against Chicago, came back into the team as a starter, against the Red Bulls. So to put more confidence into the goalkeeper, he came huge at the 22nd minute. So we're going to see this opportunity with the Red Bull, with the long ball, who was one of the things the Union could have done better defensively. Van Zier make a good run between Lowe and Elliott, but I love that Rick, didn't try to dive. He stick his ground, make a great save, with his left hand. Van Zier, kind of see if the keeper is going to dive, but Rick, stays strong, made a huge save. But what I want to point about, in this opportunity is right here. If you stop right here, so before the ball is played, you see the three defenders, Lowe, Elliott, and Glesnes. Very important for them, to know those runs, to communicate with each other. You see Lowe didn't really communicate with, Elliott or Glesnes because they are ball watching. And we saw, in the game with Dave, that the pressure of the Union forward, if you look at the three forward, they are not as close. So it's a lot of time, for the defense of the Red Bulls to be able to find those long balls. We are playing a high line, and Van Zier, of course, make a great run, but I would love to see a better communication between Lowe and Elliott, so Lowe doesn't have to make those big runs, to cover, the ground. So if you play, then the recognition, if you look at the ball, go ahead. You see that Rick, started very high, but he stayed, he came back, he waited for the first touch of Van Zier, not the best, and then he closed him down to really, make the big save. So it's something, very good for the young goalkeeper to recognize, the first touch of the goalkeeper, not kind of like diving too early, and he came huge at the 22nd minute for the Union to don't give the 1-0 lead for the Red Bulls.
Professor Lutu bestowing his knowledge with us again. It's time now for our Union Trivia question presented by United Concordia. Jack McGlynn and Nate Harriel were named to the U.S. Men's Olympic National Team roster for the 2024 Olympics. But what other former Union product was also named to the team? Find out the answer later in the show. Welcome back to Union Insider presented by Independence Blue Cross. We've talked plenty about the first team recently, but we're going to show some love to the first place Union 2 team. The team beat New England Revolution 2 over the weekend by a final score of 2-1, completing a series sweep over the Reds. And while that was impressive enough, history was made in that match as Kevin Sullivan became the youngest goal scorer in MLS Next Pro history. Here's Sage Hurley with more on this week's Union Roundup presented by Green Mountain Energy.
What's up, Union fans? Welcome back to Union Roundup. I'm Sage Hurley, here with the latest from the club's campus in Chester. Last weekend was a busy one, as both Philadelphia Union and their MLS Next Pro reserve side, Union 2, played matches on Saturday night. While the first team secured a 0-0 draw against rival New York Red Bulls, the second team continued their dominance, winning 2-1 on the road against New England Revolution 2. The win marked a very special day for the club as local wonder kid Kevin Sullivan scored his way into the history books, becoming the second youngest goal scorer in MLS Next Pro history at 14 years, 9 months, and 8 days old. After receiving a pass from CJ only in the 18th minute, Sullivan sped the ball up the left side and sliced through New England's defense to find himself in front of the net for a clinical finish, making the score 2-0.
Obviously, I'm pretty happy. I believe that there was a few chances I've had in other games before that, so that always is in my mind that it should happen earlier. But it is a nice feeling to win on the road and score the winning goal with the boys, and long bus ride back, but it was a fun one.
It was the first of what Union faithful hopes becomes many. Earlier this year, the first team signed Sullivan to the largest deal for a homegrown player Major League Soccer has ever seen. The deal also made him the youngest player to be added to the first team roster in club history. He's signed with the club through 2028, and Saturday was just the beginning of what's anticipated to be a bright future from the world-class talent. That's all for this week's edition of Union Roundup. We'll see you next time.
fellas, the Union are once again traveling north of the border, this time to Ontario to face Toronto FC on Saturday. So it's time for these two to hand over their keys to the game, presented by Subaru. Seba, what will be key for a victory in Canada?
So the key for me is to keep putting pressure on the defense of the Toronto. They are playing a back three, is the way, with the new coach, Herman, he's love to play. They kind of play right now the same way they were playing last season, who was very bad, doing a lot of mistakes, out of the back, not being in sync, having the space a lot, behind, Bernardeschi and Petretta. So if the Union can put a little bit of pressure, on the back three, like I documented earlier, on the long ball, of the Red Bulls, they are going to maybe lose some ball into the midfield that we can pick and attack quicker, this defense. It's a team right now I love to play because they're not confident. They just lost 4-0 against DC, so they are just 3 points in front of the Union, right at the limit of the playoff. So it'll be a perfect time, for the Union to win in Toronto, to kind of get them on track. They are still, very good away, and hopefully they can get those 3 points, in Toronto.
Right, the Union did build some momentum with that clean sheet against the Red Bulls. Let's see them put that in action in Toronto. How about you, Dave?
Speaking of momentum, like they executed in the Red Bull game, I want the Union to switch play often, ideally against a back three like Seba documented, one of the worst defensive teams statistically in MLS. They have 13 losses this year. They have now lost 6 straight games. They're winless in 9. Remember, they played to a 0-0 draw in Chester back on May 29th. But like we saw in the Red Bull game, I want the point of attack to go from left to the right, confuse this back line, because to me, you can really hit this team not only in a switch, but also in transition. So in this game, for example, we won't have Jack McGlynn. So whether it's Jose Martinez to come in or somebody else out of the midfield, or it's going to be one of our center backs, maybe low, Elliot Glessis, to ping a long ball and to switch it often. I think playing multiple crosses will help. Dissecting a lot of the film against Toronto, they really struggled, like the Union have, on defensive set-piece marking. I think that will be a huge key for the Union and an advantage attacking set pieces led by Kai Wagner in the game. All starts again with switches, especially in the run of play.
So, as Dave just said, they did play earlier this season. Where have the Union grown since playing that match against Toronto?
I think it's more in a midfield, like the way to construct some offensive play. I think Gazdag is a bit more involved now on the ball. We saw him finishing some good chances against the Red Bull. Unfortunately, didn't score. But if we can have him be more involved into midfield and winning this battle of midfield, we saw Toronto when they play at home, and I was very surprised. It's about the workout of Bernardeschi, the best player for me of Toronto, but he's the one playing on the right side, and he go up and down. So like Dave said, if we can really make them run more defensively, don't give him the ball often and put pressure on him, and then winning this battle in the midfield to find those spaces that maybe Gazdag can be the guy finding, I think we can be in good shape to create some opportunity offensively.
We're coming up on a break for Union Insider, but when we return, we'll discuss a player that's taken the reins recently, filling in for a club legend, and how he can develop into a starter for years to come. We'll be right back after this. It's time for this week's Chick-fil-A Nugget of the Week. 18-year-old Andrew Rick recorded his first career MLS clean sheet on Saturday night versus the New York Red Bulls, and now he's the youngest player in Union history to record a clean sheet. Welcome back to Union Insider, presented by Independence Blue Cross. Speaking of our topic of the Chick-fil-A Nugget, Andrew Rick has unexpectedly made an impact on the Union at just the age of 18. After starting the year in Union 2, Rick has been called up to fill in at the keeper spot while Andre Blake is still injured, and has performed admirably. And he gets the spotlight in this week's player profile, presented by Subaru. Rick signed a homegrown contract with the Union on May 4th of this year before the club's game against DC United, becoming the 23rd homegrown in Union history. The Bethesda, Maryland native has made 3 starts for the Union this season, including the aforementioned first career shutout against Red Bulls this past Saturday. He's also spent time with the Union too, and was even called up to the U17 U.S. national team training camp in 2023. So only 3 matches for Rick, small sample size, but he's shown a lot of growth from all those matches. What impresses you the most about Rick?
I'm very impressed about the save he has been making for the team. Not an easy one, I think, from Charlotte, a game where he lost the game 2-0, but he still came big. He really helped the team in what he had to do. The goal, was not really his fault. And then he had a little mistake against Montreal that we documented. But the fact what I was impressed about is matureness. He came back into the game against the Red Bulls, knowing they didn't start the game a single goal. So you can be a player who can be lack of confidence, and straight away really make a big save like I documented earlier at the 22nd minute. I think for me show growth of him to be a person and a goalkeeper that believe in his ability to be a good goalkeeper in this league, and you can count on him to make big save. And it's what he did, in Red Bulls. Really, impressed about his performance, and hopefully he can keep building on that.
Right, you can argue that no position in soccer is more of a mental game than goalkeeper. So for him to come back from those mistakes that he's made and be more clinical and fix those problems specifically, I think, as you said, showed a great amount of maturity. Where do you think his biggest strengths are in that?
I think he's becoming more vocal, which has helped. His footwork is really improving as well. And I would say from the Red Bull game, his distributions were a lot better. Remember that Carlos Miguel Coronel, every goal kick was going out to the left or to the right into the crowd. So I've spoken with Andrew at training, really great kid, a quiet kid. So I just mentioned more vocal, that organization with the back line, that needs to continue, whether he starts the game at Toronto or Andre's back, we'll have to wait and see. That for me has really been exceptional to watch. And remember, he was born in Maryland, took a spell, he told me he moved a little bit in North Carolina, then came up to around the Philly suburbs area, and has been with this academy since 2016, come up from the Union Juniors. Jim remembers him as a younger guy. He said to me that one of his first times watching the Union was when John McCarthy was in goal, probably around like the 2015 season. So for me, strength-wise, I think the footwork has really improved. I think, like I said, he's becoming more vocal. And I think he was caught on the free kick what Bryce Duke did at Montreal, where his hands were outstretched, and unfortunate timing there. It didn't go his way. But I would say he's always giving it his all in training. And I see it a lot going down to Chester during the week. So whether he's starting, whether it was Zemler or Rick, I see him training hard, and I know that makes an impression on the coaching staff. There's other goalkeepers that have been in the mix as well, like Holden Trent, a draft pick out of High Point. But Rick has impressed the staff, and shout out to goalkeeping coach Phil Wedden. He's done a remarkable job with these goalkeepers, and I know with Andre leading that room, that also helps as well.
It was a busy weekend in MLS, so let's take a look at some of the other big moments in this week's Around the League presented by Torque. A battle between the first and second place teams in the Supporter Shield standings. It was the team that started in second place that sent a message on Saturday. FC Cincinnati hosted Inter Miami and absolutely throttled them with a score of 6-1, as FCC is now sitting at the top of the table for the 2024 campaign. Speaking of teams in first place, we shift over to the Western Conference. LA Galaxy and Minnesota United were tied at 1 entering stoppage time until Gabriel Peck broke the deadlock with this goal as the Galaxy head on to win 2-1 and stay in a tie for first place in the Western Conference. When Union Insider returns, Seba and Dave will give us their players to watch for Saturday's match as the Union go up against Toronto FC. We'll be right back after this. Here's the answer to this week's Union Trivia question presented by United Concordia. Former Union product Paxton Aronson was also named to the U.S. men's Olympic team, joining former teammates Jack McGlynn and Nate Harrell for the Summer Games in Paris in just a few weeks. All right, here on Union Insider, presented by Independence Blue Cross, we're wrapping things up, which means it's about that time to get our all-state players to watch. So Seba, as the team heads up to Toronto, who will you be looking at?
I'm going to look at Kai Weiner. I think, his performance against the Red Bull was much better offensively. It's something, he needed to bring a little bit more, some good crosses. He got some good ones, especially in the first half, finding the back post flag who gives the ball back to Gazdag for the volley. I love, the fact that he's pushing more forward. That's what we need, as a team to get a good Kai Weiner, delivering some good crosses and at the same time being available. So he opens up more space, into the middle for the forward. But what I'm looking forward to is the fact that he's going to be matched up against Bernadeschi. Depending on the team playing at 3 or at 4, I think Jim Curtin might go in a back 3 again, and having Kai Wagner on the left. He's going to be matched up by Bernadeschi, so he needs to win his defensive battle because for me he's one of the best, dribbler 1-in-1 in the league. Great test for Kai Wagner, but let's see, if he can have a great performance defensively and then find his moment to take the space behind Bernadeschi, because he's not defending as well as Kai Wagner, so we can find, a both win for him defensively and offensively. And if we win this battle on the left side, I think we can win the game.
Yeah, no easy task, but let's see if Wagner's up for the challenge. Dave, how about you?
I see his Kai Wagner, and I raise you a Damian Lowe side by side on the back line. We're both thinking defensively, because that's one of the glaring weaknesses of the Union a lot this season is the defense in that back line. Hopefully that will get stronger down the stretch, obviously, towards Leagues Cup and after that. So I'm going with Damian Lowe. I think the recovery sprints are going to be key. I think, like Seba just said, they're going to look to play out and to the right to Bernadeschi, and whether Insigne starts. Also, Prince Owusu has been playing very well, given good shifts up top. I mentioned Longstaff early on. He will get inside, maybe Petretta on the wing, and some others getting advanced. But I think that organization, whether it's Andre in the back, Andrew Rick, or even Oliver Zembla, I think it all starts with Damian Lowe back there. I mentioned earlier in the show to provide that stability. Not just the recovery sprints, but also to win those 50-50s in the air, because I mentioned some of the set-piece marking woes of the Union as of late. I think Damian can help alongside Elliott and Glesnes, like Seba documented. Maybe the Union will go into a back five yet again, and we'll have to see how they line up. But I think Damian's going to provide that insurance in front of whoever starts for the Union on the weekend.
So a defensive state of mind for both of you. All right, that's going to do it for us on this one. The Union are back visiting our neighbors to the north, this time in Toronto to take on Toronto FC. You can watch on MLS Season Pass, 7:30 p.m., or if you just love these two so much, they're going to be on the radio call, 97.5 The Fanatic. For Dave and Seba, I'm Marisa, and we'll see you next week.